that notification icon down there, so you can get notifications that we're going live. So we'll be live every Monday, 7 p.m. Central, 8 p.m. Eastern. So let's talk about Signalr. Let's go ahead and jump into it. Signalr is a software library for Microsoft ASP.NET that allows server code to send asynchronous messages or notifications to a client, and this client can be created in JavaScript on the HTML side, or it can even be a console application or a WPF application, whichever you prefer. And today what we're going to do is we are actually going to create both the ASP or the JavaScript client, and then we're also going to create a client in the console application. So those are the two that we're going to mainly focus on. Later on during the week we'll definitely work on a application that you can utilize Signalr, but for today we're going to do just the original chat application, because that allows us to show off a lot of the things that Signalr has for us. So let's go ahead and go to the screen, and we will start up a version of Visual Studio 2019. So what we want to do is create a new project and then drop this down, and we'll go to web, which we already are on. Make sure that you're in C#, and we're going to choose this ASP.NET Core web application, and then we're going to hit next. And I'm actually going to call this project name Signalr Server, so we'll just rename that. And for the solution name, I'm just going to do Signalr. I'm not going to have server in there. And I'm just going to put this out on my desktop under tutorials. So we're just going to create that. And you want to make sure that you are on .NET Core, ASP.NET Core 3.0, and select Web Application. Okay. And some of this code that you're going to see, I'm just going to go ahead and instead of you watching me type while we're on live, which does not always work that good, I'm just going to copy and paste, and I'll explain the code. Okay, so the first thing that we want to do when we open up that, we get this page here, you can just close that out. What we want to do is we want to make a hubs directory. So you just go to add new folder, and we'll just call this hubs, just like so. Okay, and inside of that hubs directory, you're just going to add a new class library. So just select class, and we are going to call this our chat hub. So chat hub. Okay. Now when that class opens, it'll be a public class, and we want it to derive from hubs, or just hub rather. And when you don't have that, you just want to drop this down and get your using in there, so that will write your using. So the using is Microsoft.ASP.NET Core Signalr. Now if you come from an older version, if you're programming in just standard .NET, then you'll notice that we used to use the NuGet package, and we would have to import that in using NuGet. Well, in a web application for .NET Core, it is included, so you don't have to bring that in, which is good. We're just going to go ahead and work on we've got two methods here. We have a send message method, which I'm going to write that in. I'm actually just going to copy and paste that in. So let me get that copy, and we'll paste it in right there, so you don't have to see me write it, and I'll explain all this. And then we're just going to do a on connection async. Now there are some other overrides if you want to see what's inside of that class that you're deriving from. It is just an abstract class, but you can see the methods that are virtual that you can override, like the on connected and on disconnected. So we could override the on disconnected, but for this tutorial we're not going to do anything for that. So we did override the onSync. And then we created our own method, and it's an asynchronous method. It's a task, and it sends message, takes 2 arguments, 1 user and the message. Okay? So in the onConnected, that's when the clients actually connect to the server. We are actually going to send out a message. We're going to send it to this method that the clients are going to be listening to. So they're going to have a method on the clients called connected, and we're going to send just a connection ID. Okay? So that's it for the hub. Now what we have to do is actually set up Signalr. It's extremely simple. First, go to the actual configure services. And then what you want to do is you want to take your services, and we're just going to add Signalr. And then come down to the configure side of things, and underneath this where you use endpoints, you're just going to go ahead and set up the endpoint that the clients are going to connect to. So, and we are going to do that, map the hub. Now we have to tell what hub we want to map, which is our chat hub, and we are going to go ahead and bring that in. Now inside here, inside the constructor there, or the arguments that we're going to pass rather, we are going to actually create the endpoint. So you create the endpoint by just /, we'll call this the chat hub, just like that, and that is it. You are completely set up on the server. So if we would run this, our server is actually running, but of course we don't have any clients yet that's connected to it, so we can't really see what's going on with this application. But as you can see, it's localhost 443.68, so 443.68 is the port that it's listening on, and of course we don't have anything here, so we're going to change that. So what I want to do is I want to create a form here, and the form is going to take the username, the message that they're sending, and then right below that we're going to actually see a list of messages that's coming in from other clients. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and do that, and that is found in the www root, or actually I skipped a section there, so let's go to pages first. Let's go ahead and go to our index page, and that is that page that we saw on the front. So that's that page. What we're just going to do is we're going to go ahead and delete this. So, and then what we're going to do is I'm actually going to just copy this code from another application that I done earlier. So we're just going to copy all this here, and I'll explain it to you, which makes it a lot better than trying to code while on live. So we're going to paste that. Okay, so this page is set up here. We have our user input, which is right here called user input. That's just a text box, and we have another text box called the message input, and then under that we have a send button that will send our message to everyone else, and then below that we just have the message list, is where we're going to actually put the messages coming from the other clients and the message you sent yourself. You want to make sure that you include the Signalr JS and the ChatJS, and you'll notice that if you go into your www root in your JS folder where this is set, we don't have a ChatJS, nor do we have a Signalr. So this is looking at the directory JS Signalr dist browser Signalr JS. Well, as you see, we don't have a Signalr folder in there, so under JS. So what we're going to have to do is you click right mouse button there, add, and you want client-side libraries. This will pop up a box just like this. It says add client-side libraries. You're going to drop this down and go to unpackage. And then you just can type Signalr, and this Microsoft's the one that we want. So we're going to deselect all these. Well, we can choose. We have to click choose specific files there before we deselect anything. So then just go to dist and browser and just select Signalr.js and Signalr min.js. And those are the two that you want to install. Now, as you can see, that directory, once it installs, it will be there. And I don't know why that just did not install. So let's make sure. Oh, you know, I messed that up. Don't do what I did, because yeah, I accidentally installed it right here under Microsoft. So let's go ahead and delete that. That was my fault. I did not, and I'd done that actually before while I was trying to record this. I actually done that before, and I was like, I gotta remember not to do that, but here I go. So Signalr, so you'll actually be able to see that again. Choose a specific file, go to files, and then choose your browser, Signalr and Signalr min, and down here is where you want to use this right here. So it's going to be www-root, and then we're going to do JS, and we could have changed that in there if we wanted to, but I like to have mine here, so it's not changed any. So we'll do dist and then browser and then Signalr.js. So that is where we are going to install that. So that should, oops, and it did not, for some reason, select my files again. I thought I selected those, but okay. So that should be it. So let that install, and under JS now you have Signalr, dist, and then browser, and then we have dist again for some reason, and then browser, and then Signalr. So let's just move that under the first dist. I don't know why that exactly done that, but so let's get rid of that. So if you mess up like me, just make sure that this directory here is the same as it is up here. So we don't need that second dist. Okay. So there we go. Okay. And I think I know why that did that, but let's just go ahead and we'll just move on from there. So we have JS, Signalr, dist, browser, and then Signalr.js. Okay, so if you've ever been in code before, you'll definitely know that there's all the time you had mess up, so please forgive me on that. So we're going to go ahead and save that, and that should be it as far as that is concerned. So there is one thing, let me just open that back up again, I forgot about. Okay, so the next one is ChatJS, and of course you see that we don't have that. So let's just go ahead and we'll add that class. So that's just going to be a new item, and you want to go down here to web, and you'll just do a JavaScript file, and we'll call this chat.js. So, and make sure that I did not capitalize that, so let's not capitalize that, chat.js. There we go. Okay, so we have the chat.js. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm just going to bring that in too. So, and then we'll talk about that. So, okay. So we first use our strict directive, and then we have a variable here called connection, and that connection is going to equal the Signalr hub connection builder with URL, and that chat hub is the same URL that we put. That's that endpoint that we're listening on to make the connection in our startup. So that was that one right here. So this name and that name needs to be the same. So once we do the connection, we get the send button, So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this side by side so you can actually see. Now let me go ahead and unpin that. Okay, so we have our send button here, which is down here, called send button. We're going to set that to true, is disabled. So we're just going to disable that. Then we're going to create a connection on, and we're going to call this receive message. Now, where do we get that? We get that in our hub. If you remember, and we'll bring this over here also. If you remember in our hub, when we call this method send message, this is going to send out a receive message, and that is the method that the client is going to be subscribed to. So we're actually subscribing from the Signalr connection. We're subscribing to the receive message method, and we're going to be accepting two strings, a user and a message, which is what this is sending. So this definition of this method is where it's being created, and we're just listening to it on the client side. So when we get that message, we're then just going to strip out the ampersand, the left and the right greater than sign. We're going to strip those out because those aren't good for, those are HTML. So we were going to be posting this into a text box. So we want to make sure we strip that out. And then all we do is we create an element, an LI element, and then we just append it to the message list. So if you look here, you can see the message list is a UL. So we just append that LI to that list. Okay? So when it actually starts up, when it first starts up, we're just going to disable that. We're going to enable that button by setting the send button's disabled to false. Okay? And then down here, when we actually click the send button, this is what we're going to do. We're going to send the message, so that's invoking the send message. So anytime that you want to invoke a method on the hub, or you want to send message, which is what we have, we would invoke that. So if we had another method, say do something, then if we wanted to invoke that from our client, we would just invoke do something and then send it its expected arguments, which this is expecting user and message. And there are the user and message. So when we do that, if we have an error, of course, it's going to just spit out that error on the console. And that is going to send that message up here. And then it's going to call all the clients. So all the clients that are connected, it's going to send that message async to their receive message. So any client that's listening to the receive message method is going to get that information. Okay? So I believe we're all set up. So let's go ahead and test it out and see if it works. Now, in ordinary for us to actually test this out to make sure that it's working, we have to actually have two browsers open. So I'm just going to duplicate this too. And so you know that they are two separate browsers. So that would be like basically two separate clients. Well, I tell you what, everybody knows that that's. So I want to see these side by side. So I'm just going to go ahead and put that up there and there. So let's just call this one Keith. And this user is going to be Signalr. So if Keith says hi to Signalr, which I'm going to, there, and Signalr gets that message. So he says hello, and he sends the message. So these two clients that are connected, and you can have as many clients as you want, so I can duplicate another one, and we can actually bring that down. Now we're not going to be able to see that. Let's just move that up, and move this one up also. So if I can grab a hold of that, we'll move that up so we can actually see. And let's just say this is Brian. And I am Brian. Now when I send that, now you'll notice that when Brian got connected, his messages are gone. That's because this page got refreshed and that all the messages. So he wasn't in the conversation, so he doesn't get what everyone else said yet. You can always fix that. You can, maybe put that to a database or whatnot, and send it so everybody gets the message. But here is Brian. So Brian's in the chat now. So Skylar and Keith says hi to him, and there it goes. Okay. So that is how you set up a Signalr server for a web and the client using JavaScript. So now let's go ahead and create a console application, and we will see how a console application could also communicate. Okay. So what we're going to do is just click our solution, right mouse click, add, new project, and instead of web, it's going to be console. And make sure you're .NET Core, next, and we're just going to call this console app 1, which is fine. That's you can name it anything that you want, but we're just going to call it console app 1. Okay, so as you can see, our console app has this simple program inside of here in the main. Now what I'm going to do again is I am going to copy everything, because I know you guys do not want to see me typing, and too many bad things go wrong. So I have tested out this application before the live stream, so I don't look like a complete idiot, even though I did earlier with that stuff. Okay, so we're going to have a couple errors whenever I paste this in, and the reason why is inside the console application, Signalr does not come with it. So what we want to do is right mouse click the Signalr or the console app project, and we are actually going to manage NuGet packages. And you're going to go to browse, and you're just going to type in Signalr, and when you do this, there's going to be a lot of other ASP.NET, which is right here, Signalr, and all that stuff. So make sure that you don't select that. And that's the reason why I've done this, is I want to let you know that there are others. Now what we're looking at is we're looking for the client. So here it is, and make sure that it says ASP.NET Core, not ASP.NET Signalr. Okay, so there is one up here, Microsoft ASP.NET Signalr client. We want to make sure that it's the core. So you just select that and collect install. At the time of this recording, this live stream, it's 3.0. So we just install that, accept the license agreement, and everything is done. I don't know why. Oh, that's because I have those errors. So now we should have the ability to bring in that using, and that, so we should be able to bring in everything there, and I messed that up. So let's go ahead and get rid of that. So I needed to paste that underneath the actual main, so that makes it a lot better. So let's go ahead. So there was a lot of errors there that did not need. So as you can see really quick, I'm bringing in my usings. So you're going to need the task, and I'll explain that. And I also need the replay method, and I will show you exactly what that does. Okay. So in the main, we have a variable, it's a string, and it's called name. So that's the name of the person, that's the name of the person that's going to be chatting. And then we do similar what we did online in the JavaScript, is we're going to create a connection. We're going to call this hub connection, and we just want to get the hub connection builder, and then you say with URL, and then you get your URL. So that is the URL that the chat hub is listening on, and then we're going to build. Okay, so we are going to, the connection has a closed event that we're going to listen for, and all I'm going to do is just delay that randomly from 0 to 1000, and then once that task delays, then it's going to run, it's going to try to start it again. So I have a method that I'm going to listen to for the on connected, or I should say the connected, and remember it sends a connection ID. So let's just go ahead and look at that so we know exactly what I'm talking about. So I'm going to put these side by side. So what happens is the client is going to connect, it's going to make a connection, and it's going to actually be on connected async. So when the client connects, it's actually going to send back its connection ID. So every client gets a connection ID, and that is signed by Signalr. So that's done for you internally. So it's going to sign to keep you guys, all the clients that are connected, to keep them. They're all going to have their own ID. So it's going to keep them separated. So that's how we'll be able to know who sent what message. So what we're just doing is we're sending that back. So anybody listening, any client that's listening to the connected, which we are here, they're going to get the connection ID. So when that connection ID comes in, we're just going to write it to the console. So we're going to say your connection ID is, and then the connection, and then after that, we're going to have them to enter their name. Okay. So the next one is the receive message. So when we receive message, all we're going to do is write the line user and then a colon in between that in the message. And that's all we're going to do there. So as this runs, it's going to come down here, and this is where the connection is actually going to start. So this is where we're going to start our connection. Usually, most of the time, I want to put that in a try catch. So I know if there's any problems, I can put that message, print that exception out to the console. So then we're going to read lines. So that's just going to stop and wait for us to type our name. Once we do that, it's going to tell us to write our message, and it's going to call us by name, and then it's going to run this method here, which is our replay. It's going to send in the connection and the name. And here's the replay. It just does while true, so it's a loop. And it's going to just wait for us to write our message. When we write our message, it's going to send that asynchronously to the send message, which is going to be up here. And then that is going to send out to all the clients. And that is it. So that's how you set up your console application. And there is the code for it. So I will just slowly, if you want to stop the video there, once I upload it, you guys can look at this again and stop the video. But let's go ahead and run our application now. The thing about it is when we run our console application, we want to make sure that we're running our server too. So if you click on solution and you right click and go to properties, you'll be able to run multiple startup projects. So let's make sure our server is on top. It's going to actually run first, so we can start that. And then our console app's going to run second, so we'll just start that. And then we'll apply, OK, and we'll run it. And as soon as this connects, if it does connect, we should see that, but we're not. So let's, I believe the port is wrong because I copied that from another, I copied that from my old one, so I'm pretty sure that port is wrong. Let me just check something here on the debug. So let's just check and see if our port is the same. So let's see here. We'll go to properties and we'll go to debug. Okay, so this one that I'm wanting to listen to is actually 565, so it's this number, so which is a different number than what I told my console application, so I was afraid of that. So that's the bad thing about copying. We want to make sure that that is the right port. So we'll just paste that, and I believe I pasted that correctly. Let's just make sure so that I get the whole number. Yes, I did. And program the whole number, so now that should run. And there it is. So we have a connection to it, so just make sure that the port, and just remember, let me just go through that one more time so we know. Change this port number to the port number of your server, and you can find that by actually going over here to your Solution Explorer, right-clicking on the server, going to Properties, and then going down to Debug tab, and you'll actually see this is the actual port right here. Okay, so we'll close that out. So let's go ahead and run it again. And what we're going to do, so we can actually see that this is happening, we're going to bring our client over here. So we have two clients. This one is going to be called Signalr. So Signalr's up online, and then mine is going to be called Keith. Can't even spell my own name. That's horrible. And then I'm going to write the message. So I'm just going to do the same thing as I did up there. Hi. And you see Signalr gets that message, and Signalr is going to type hello. Okay, so that is it for Signalr lesson today for this live stream. Be looking later on and during the week, I'll upload another video that will actually go into a real world scenario, how we use Signalr. We'll actually put Signalr into a controller, so you can actually message clients when people are doing certain things to controllers. So we can go back to the video. I'm done with that. So basically, Signalr can also be used for, updating progress. So a lot of our cloud applications, even desktop applications today, most of the stuff is done in the cloud. So our desktop applications will actually be connected to the cloud. So there's processes that's going to be up there. So it would be nice so the client knows what those processes are and how they're doing. So you can always use Signalr to communicate back to them the processes, or the progress, I should say, of those processes. So that's just one scenario. There's many others, such as for the web. If you had a web application out there or a website, you can be listening for users. So when a user comes in, we know that somebody, some live person, is on that website interacting, and what that will do is communicate back. So now we can then communicate to that client. So anytime that client goes on the web and he opens up a website, then we'll know that he's on our website and we can interact with them. So now it's not just as the old HTTP it's just a request response model, or technology, or I guess you'd say protocol. Now we have the ability to connect with our clients, to connect with our customers. So we can, use that to convert them. So anyways, that's about it, and I think that is done for today. I appreciate you guys joining in. Just remember to subscribe down below and touch that button. Follow me on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook, and I'll see you next time.